Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director, and in this episode is another chance to sit down with somebody in a different setting than we are used to. I sat down with Doug Layton, actually at his house, and we talked about his story. He went from, living life to spending 20 years in prison, and then walking his way out of that and learning how to re-enter society and how to grow from his situation. And I think you'll see in his story how he took opportunities and he took second chances and made something out of his life that's beautiful. And then on the other side of this conversation, you'll hear the wins that he found through his persistence, through his faith, but also from some help from the community college system. So check out my conversation with Doug Layton. I think you're going to enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Innovation Unplugged. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell quickly that this is not our normal setup, and that's fantastic. This is what we've been looking for. To tell the stories of our students and to tell some really interesting success stories. So I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director for the Innovation Center, and today I am at beautiful home. Doug Layton is our guest today, and we've been working on getting this conversation to happen, and I just happened to be coming through Birmingham, and I was like, hey, can we record on your porch? And you were like, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
So this is a first for us, but I just want to say, just before we get even into the conversation, it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you and meet you, and I'm humbled that you invited me into your home to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. So just for background, for the audience knows, like Alex Blevins is the owner of One Stop CDL, and he's a longtime friend now, 4 or 5 years of the college system, and mine personal. He was on our show talking about what he does, and I asked him a question. I was like, hey, tell me a student success story that just tears you up, that you almost can't tell it because you're so happy and you're proud of that human. And he paused and he had to collect himself a little bit. He said, let me tell you about Doug. And I said, okay. And so he told me the briefest of stories about you that you had come through his course. And I was like, okay, I gotta meet this guy, and so he gave me your number. I reached out, and here we are.
Sure. Yeah.
So you do have what I say a miraculous story, and it's inspiring. And I think our audience would love to hear it. But I'll say that what we do was built for situations and stories like yours. And so that's why I'm so interested. Not about me, but it's about what you've walked through. And
Right.
somebody out there somewhere will say, well, I saw what Doug did. I can do it too.
Sure they can. Anybody can.
So I believe so. We've talked a little bit off air about different things, but tell us what you want to tell us. Lay the background for how you got to be here.
Well, I mean, it all started years ago and stuff where I got derailed with, drugs, alcohol, so forth, and lived a life like that. And through my choices, I ended up taking somebody's life, driving, and ended up going to prison, and gave me a life sentence, 230s, 415s, everything running the life. And I wasn't expecting to ever get out.
That's 120 years.
Well, it is, but I mean, it's all in the life. And in Alabama, when you have a life sentence, and it was considered a violent offense.
Yeah.
Even though it was, during a car, and I hit somebody and killed them.
Yeah.
And stuff. So from that point on, I stopped doing everything. I started trying to do a lot in prison to build my character and try to humble myself, and a lot of trials and tribulations in Alabama prison and stuff. And I guess to jump forward a little bit, I'd worked my custody from a level 5 to a level 4 to a work honor camp.
Yeah.
At Childersburg, and started working at Talladega College, black college that's been around since 1860 or whatever it was. And, I would go there during the day and then come back to prison and sleep there and, in the weekends there too and stuff. Um, and one day a corrections officer asked me if I had a minute to talk to him. So I said, well, sure. What else am I going to do? So he pulls me out of the dorm and we're standing on the grass and he says, I got home and there was 3 women in my front yard. And I was like, okay. He said, and they wanted to know about you and if I knew you because they lived down the street.
Okay.
They saw that he was a corrections officer. And I said, okay, well, what they want? And he said, well, we talked for an hour and a half, and it was the mother and the 2 sisters of the guy that you ran over and killed. And I immediately I went, what?
Okay.
And so they wanted to know what you have done in prison, if I knew you, and he was a corrections officer at St. Clair, and, so he knew me there, and then he knew me at Childersburg, and he said, "He's just hardworking, does what he's supposed to do, he doesn't get in trouble, so forth." And they looked at him and they said, "Well, we're gonna try to get him out of prison."
Okay.
And he told me this story, and so it was overwhelming to me that there was forgiveness, and that was good enough for me because I felt so bad about through my choices that they had lost a brother and a son, and
Yeah.
plus my family had to go through all my choices and stuff. And I didn't think anything of it because in Alabama, you don't make parole if you have a violent offense. There's no chances. Um, it's pretty much locked down. And even if the victims' families speak up, they don't ever do anything
Right.
because just nobody really wants to take that chance. So, anyways, um, we I went on, did my work and stuff like that. And then one day they said, we need you to pack your stuff up. We're going to Jefferson County and you're gonna go to court. And I'm thinking, God, it's been almost 20 years. I know I haven't done anything in 20 years, that would pop up that whatever. And got there and then I realized that it was a court hearing for me and the mother and Sue Bell Cobb and Redemption Earned and Danny Carr was
Mhm.
there. And so I'm sitting there and the mother comes in and they help her in and stuff, and she comes straight to me and she hugs me and she whispers in my ear, she says, "I want you out of prison." And so,
Wow.
um, it's hard for me to tell the story. I try to tell it fast because I get all emotional.
Well, okay, I can imagine though, so you knew you got that word while you were still inside in St. Clair,
Yeah,
and then she has a chance to tell you that in person while holding you.
yeah, and it was very emotional. And so, I'm still thinking to myself, "Here's the forgiveness." And, so I felt a big relief.
Sure.
And, so we sat down and Danny Carr's there and Sue Bell Cobb's there and her staff or whatever. And my mother was there. They had driven her there. And the judge got Miss Akers to talk. And she talked and said what she needed to say. And
The mother?
the mother.
Yeah.
And so then it was my turn and I didn't even know what to say because I was so emotional that I was tongue tied.
I bet.
And, but I said what I could say with emotionally, and,
Do you remember what you said?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just, the I'm sorry and forgiveness, and I've been trying to live a better life regardless if I was in prison or not. I was trying to do what I was supposed to do,
Yeah.
even if I was gonna stay there the rest of my life. I wasn't gonna be the old person ever again.
Yeah.
And, I was clean and, thinking well, and, so the judge listened to everything, and the judge looked at Miss Eckes, and looked at me and said, "Mr. Layton, I have never done this as long as I've been on the bench, but I'm vacating your sentence, time served, you're a free man." And I went,
Yeah.
"What?" And, it was tough. It was really tough for me to I mean, I was crying for
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So how long were you in? 20 years?
Get right at it, yeah.
How old were you when you went in?
37?
37.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot happens in the world in 20 years.
Oh, it's completely changed.
And your
Yeah.
like your personal world that you knew, people change and
People are dead or gone or, um the biggest issue that I had when I got out was everybody felt like that they were entitled to something, like, that they didn't have to work as hard. But I was waiting for this chance to get
yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
once I got out, I'm looking at all these people that are crying about work or this, that, and the other and stuff, and I'm going, "I want all their money." It's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and so I overwhelmed myself with, just the basics, getting the foundation down, which is, um, getting my driver's license, getting my birth certificate, getting my Social Security card, all that stuff, which I was, like, gung ho trying to
I
get that.
bet. I bet.
Because I knew that I need that foundation regardless.
So you were reborn in a legal sense,
Yes,
spiritual sense.
all that. Because everything that happened for all that to fall into place with the judge, with the DA not protesting it, with the mother, especially the mother and the forgiveness, and then Sue Bell Cobb with her team at Redemption Earned
Yeah.
and stuff, um, for it to fall into place like that, that's a God thing.
Yeah.
It was a miracle. Yeah.
I believe that. Um, I think we all have those moments where it's like, man, there's no way that happened and I survived
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
it weren't for God being there.
definitely.
A friend of mine calls them God winks.
Yeah.
It was so you came out, and a lot of times through my work in the college system, I've learned that recidivism, and people who are reentering society struggle to find their place and to feel comfortable. I think it's made most famous by that movie Shawshank Redemption. When he gets
Yes.
out, he's in the grocery store,
He
and
goes just yeah, you can't deal with it.
doesn't know what to do. And so every time I've talked to you since we got connected, you've been either going to work, just got home from work, or maybe we're at work.
Doing something.
You're doing something.
Yeah.
Certainly not an idle soul, and that intrigued me. I mean, because I can't sit still either, but you're doing all this work, and Alex told me what you were doing to get through the CDL, to get that earned. But he told me about all the stuff you did at his range,
Right.
just to help
I
out.
always gotta do more.
Yeah.
Always do more. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Yeah.
When I got out, I got a job at Bessemer Glass and Industries,
Okay.
and they accepted me into their basically family. It's a small family-owned business. Started off at 14, $15 an hour or whatever, and within a year and a half, um, I was making really, really good money, and so I'm tootling right along, I'm doing everything thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
um, becoming an asset, and I guess that's the main thing that I guess most people and myself feel like if you're of value, if you're of value, then you feel like that you're worth something.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, and so they gave me that feeling of value or whatever, and so they lost some contracts, and, he came in there and he says, "I'm gonna have to lay off 5 people." And I was like, "They're not gonna lay me off
Yeah.
because I'm too valuable." And I put everything into it. So I turned into getting laid off, and, when I got laid off, I thought, "Oh, no," because, it was
Yeah.
like a big blow.
Sure. Were you
But
afraid that you would slip back into some old habits?
not really, because I know that I had built so much of a foundation
Okay.
that I can back up to it because during the weekends, I mowed grass to
Mhm.
make extra money. paint houses, do little remodeling things for different people and stuff. So I was always busy. And I thought, well, I can always do that. I made real good money doing that, plus a full-time job. So I continued doing that, staying busy, not sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
Because if it comes down to it, you could get a lawnmower and go mow grass and make $100 a day,
Sure.
to where you're
So
still
now
making some money and having those options because, money gives you the options and stuff. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm going to do a career change,
yeah.
something that's consistent. And I looked up Alex and I went to Alex and I said, I need my CDL. And he says, I got you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I drove 30 years ago. Maybe I can just pick it up. And it started coming back to me and stuff. And through his direction and me listening to him,
Yeah.
it turned out to where, at 4, 5, 6 weeks or whatever, went and took my test, got my test, and it was an automatic restriction, and I thought, I can drive just about anywhere. And, so I'm at the point now to where this construction company wants me, and they said, "There's plenty of room for advancement, overtime.
Yeah.
I can still do my side work, make a little bit of extra money and stuff, and just stay busy, busy." And, he said, "But all our trucks are manual."
Yeah.
So then I go to Jeff State down in Clanton, and they just opened their arms up to me and said, come on,
Yeah.
we'll get it was, Gary Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, good guy. And, he said, well, jump in the truck, do the, practicing and stuff like that. And, it's hard to learn manual when you haven't done it because you have to do double clutching,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that,
And the high-low switch.
high, low, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, through practice and the encouragement through Gary and the students and everybody working
The other
together.
students there.
Yeah, it's great. And so Monday I'll go get that restriction off of me.
Yeah, you went this morning.
Yeah, well, yeah, just
Practice a little.
yeah, and then Monday I'll take the test. I won't have any problem now, but
Yeah.
you know,
So when you went to get your Class A license skills test
right,
in the automatic, you went to a state trooper's office?
sure, yeah, in Tuscaloosa on Skyland.
So question I have, the question that popped in my head when Alex was telling your story is like, you spent all that time in prison and owned it, did all that, but then the person who gave you that job, basically, was a person in law enforcement, a badge.
Where?
Well, at the state trooper's
Oh
office,
yeah, definitely.
So what
Yeah.
was that like? That was that moment is what caught my eye, piqued my interest, was just that it was law enforcement that held you there for 20 years, and then law enforcement gave you the keys to
Right.
a better future. Did you think about that, or
Right.
what's that like?
Not really, but you look at it like when they look at that, they look at me like I'm just a normal guy trying to get a CDL.
Okay.
And, if you do a background check and stuff like that, then you can see, well, this guy's come from here to here. And, for somebody to give you the chance that they take, that they trust you,
Yeah.
that your life is, you're doing what you're supposed to do or whatever. And
Yeah.
so when I first got my license and started driving, I'm just super careful. I'm driving through some of these neighborhoods and stuff with a trailer with Bessemer glass.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking these people are walking and riding bikes and all this stuff, and it just kind of
Yeah.
freaked me out. And I'm
Okay.
just super careful.
I didn't think about that. That
And
makes
so, I look at it like God has given me the opportunity to be a productive part in society. The state trooper's office giving me the opportunity to be productive with a truck.
yeah.
And, some of these truckers out there, they're not even qualified. And,
Yeah.
I always try to exceed in anything that I try to do as far as driving a truck, driving my car, whatever, just to be safe and do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, super easy.
What would you say to someone who's walked through a similar story, but is struggling to take that first step to productivity, to be the productive citizen you're talking about, what would you
Well,
tell that person?
I sat on that 1-inch mattress for almost 20 years, and I knew exactly what I was gonna do, which was, when you start becoming a valuable citizen, you get your driver's license, you get your birth certificate, you get your Social Security card, and then credit,
Yeah.
because my credit was 0. And so I got a secure card, put $200 on it, borrowed on it, paid it back, borrowed on it, paid it back. And I looked at it like within 6 months, anybody can get enough stability and consistency in their life that it's really kind of hard to knock you off of your square.
Mhm.
And just like when I lost my job or got laid off,
Yeah.
I still had those fundamentals that I could go back to. And I think, the people that you hang around, um, me personally, my group of people are very small.
Yeah.
I don't try to be around a bunch of crowded people and, try to make everybody happy or whatever. I just kind of condense everything down to my work and my family.
What's essential?
Family.
Yeah, I mean, narrowing down to what is essential.
Yeah, family's
Yeah.
most important.
Yeah.
And then after because it's your support system.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a family, then the support system could be a rehab or a sponsor
Mhm.
or something like that, which is very, very important to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Something's bothering you that day or whatever. And it's usually just waking up the next day and it's better.
This is just better.
It's better.
Do you ever work with people who are reentering society, or do you counsel other guys who've walked through a
No,
similar
but
story?
I've had Danny Carr kind of mention that to me, and I said, I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Just talk, I think the main thing that I'm doing is just the way I kind of live my life. If somebody can just look at that and then it asks me questions. I used to hire some people to help me on my side work
Yeah.
from the Ark,
Yeah.
which is a little halfway house.
Yeah. Familiar.
Right, with Steve Green, the owner. But anyways, I would hire some guys and they're like, "Oh man, you've got a nice F-150 and you got a house and this, that, and the other." But it didn't come easy.
No.
I'm just trying to get that foundation that I can hold on to. But when somebody's looking at something like that, you can get everything you need legally and the bling, in other words, but it takes a little bit of time. But it all starts in 6 months, like with a credit card.
Yeah.
After 6 months, now they're giving me a unsecured card,
Yeah.
and I have to throw them away
Oh, for
because,
sure.
they're trying to but my credit went from like 0 to I think I'm like 780 now.
It's nearly perfect.
Yeah.
It's
So
nearly
I'm
perfect.
I'm going for the 800.
Going for the 800.
Yeah.
What's I like to play the game of one word, two words. Like, what are you thinking right now? So in those moments when you talked about when the judge said, "Hey, you're a free man," and the gentleman's mother told you that you were forgiven. When you came out and you have these moments, like when you've got that CDL, what was like one word that was on your mind in that moment?
Um, accomplish something else.
Okay.
Yeah, like I like to complete things,
Yeah.
instead of just halfway doing something and then going to something else and halfway doing something, no matter how long it takes. Once I make my mind up that I'm gonna do one thing, then I see it to the end.
Yeah.
Um,
Does that keep you focused?
yeah,
And I'm thinking, our courses serve a lot of those halfway houses
mhm,
and rehab centers, and those folks are working through a lot. And sometimes they're still working through addictions,
yeah,
and sometimes they're working through legal problems. But
right.
it always seems like what is the magic sauce that keeps them engaged, and wanting to come back for more. And it seems like over and over it's just accomplishing one thing and then having the next thing already out there for them.
Right, yeah, a trade.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you get a trade, you can just about write your own ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start making that money, it would be ridiculous to go out and to throw that away,
Right.
because like say, uh, if you become a welder,
Yeah.
you're always going to be a welder,
Yeah.
always, no matter what, whatever job you have, or you're going to be able to move and progress forward and stuff. And the sense of accomplishment through a trade is it's amazing. I've always been good at doing this or that. Even in prison, I went through carpentry school, I went through brick mason,
Yeah.
went through electrical and these things and just completed them. So now, I have those trades that I can fall back on.
You plan to use those in some way?
Maybe. Well, I use them every day.
Did you build this deck?
I helped on it.
It's
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
tough looking around.
It was hard. It was
Well,
hard to do. Yeah, we did 2 decks in the front and
yeah.
whatever. It was, I could have done it myself, but it was just a lot of work.
Sure.
So I had to get a couple of guys to help.
But you know how.
Sure.
And that's the thing I really want a lot of folks to capture when they come through these courses, and maybe they don't get the job they want, or the job doesn't come quickly.
Patience.
But they know how.
Right.
They have a tangible skill that can't be taken away.
No,
You know what I
ever.
mean? And so that gives them options for
It
earning
does.
potential.
Yep.
What does that do for a person who's recovering or climbing back up, out of the valley? What
Everything. I mean, I would think that having a trade that you can always fall back on. You can be a carpenter anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You can be a painter anywhere in the world, a welder, whatever, anywhere in the world.
I was watching some guys today in the video. I went to a graduation at Southern Union, and there was a
Right.
video of them working on those tiny houses. And I wonder if they ever thought that I could take this and go to France
Sure.
and build.
Yeah, and you don't even really have to speak too much if they know, if you know the procedure behind building something, you wouldn't have any problems.
That's
It's the same everywhere.
Do you wonder sometimes if young people realize what a skilled trade would do and give them that opportunity?
Yeah, like a lot of people like myself, I wasn't super smart in school.
Yeah.
As far as some of the kids now with computers and stuff like that, I'm kind of inept when it comes to that. But one thing's for sure, if you could read a tape measure, if you can go through a procedure of a weld or whatever, you got it made.
Got it made.
And you don't have to be the smartest man in the world.
Well, it's almost a superpower now to be able to read a tape measure.
I know, it's great.
If
And it's easy.
It's
Yeah.
easy. I was, well, I forget what I was working on with my son. I was making him measure. We were doing the inside, like it was a box or something. We were trying to measure the bottom inside measurement.
Right.
And I showed him, measure one way and make a mark, and then measure the backside.
Right, yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, why don't you just bend the tape?" I was like, "Well, try it and see,"
Yeah.
and he figured it out. But let's go back to your CDL. What was it like for you getting back in that big truck and then being able to drive for work in a commercial vehicle?
It was a great experience. I mean, just when he said jump in there and, do some forward and backing and then worked on some of the offset backing and stuff like that. And it was exciting to me.
Yeah.
It was exciting that, I had moved to that point to where I felt confident.
Yeah. Do you ever, sometimes the phrase fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't like that one. What I
yeah.
like is I'm going to stink at it until I'm good at it,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Can't stop
Yeah.
from start to finish.
Right.
And then once you complete it, I don't care if it takes you 4 weeks or if it takes you 6 months.
Right.
Whatever it is, complete it.
Just get it.
And it's done. And sometimes you got to get through the monotony, being frustrated, whatever. And I got frustrated a couple of times because I'm thinking, I used to do this. Why can't I do this?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I realized, the aha moment to where you go,
There it is.
there it is. I should have done it like
The
that.
whole time.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you get your manual restriction removed on Monday with Jeff Stake?
Right. I'm gonna go with this construction company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just hauling? You can do any kind of equipment operation?
No, I'm gonna probably just do, I'm actually gonna drop down to a B because the potential with this company to do combination is like 90 days down the road.
Okay.
So say I drop down to a straight truck, which I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
humbling myself to that, and do runs to Mississippi and back, that's my day.
Yeah.
Tennessee and back, it's my day. They get overtime. As far as your ELD, if you don't have time to come back, they'll pay a motel fee or
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
And
I've often
and
wondered about that when you get stuck, especially if you're in a box truck.
yeah, it doesn't matter
Absolutely.
what you're in. If
Yeah.
you got to be legal.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason behind the ELDs and
Oh, sure.
being legal and your brakes and stuff. So, and then after 90 days, hopefully, and he said, we can move you on up to combination, which is more money,
Sure.
more responsibility and stuff, and maybe a little bit longer runs, but not too much.
Right.
It's just more equipment
A little more
and
complicated.
stuff. And,
maneuver.
and I love driving a combination, but to get in with this company, I'll start off at the bottom.
Sure.
I don't care.
Well, I talked to a young man this morning driving to Auburn about that. He's got a Class B, trying to get his Class A. He's a federal worker
Right. Yeah.
on furlough. He's like, I really can't afford to drive back and forth to class,
Yeah.
but I got this Class B. I was like, brother, construction companies love a Class B driver.
They love them.
They're very
Yeah.
essential. And so let me get you connected to some folks, and you take it from there. And so,
Sure. I mean, they start off 25-ish,
yeah,
22, 25, and then potential to get 40 is
Yeah.
just, phenomenal.
right around the corner.
Yeah. Because everybody wants a safe, dependable driver,
Yeah.
to where you're always there. And I'm always early, willing to stay late, never complain about, whatever.
Yeah.
You want me to do this? I'll do that. Whatever you want me to do.
Your perspective on things
I have to be.
it's your
Yeah.
your perspective is so fresh.
Yeah.
Because I talk to a lot of people and know a lot of folks around in workforce, and not everyone's so dadgum willing to get there early, stay late, and
You have to.
accomplish. Like,
Yeah.
if you always had that, is that
No.
something that's this side of?
I would love to sleep 15-hour days
Okay.
and wake up at noon and try to figure out what I'm gonna make some money.
Yeah,
And that was the old me. Now it's I try to do as much as I can, fill my day up, even if like right now, I went and kind of practiced a little bit the rest of my day and stuff. So I'd planned with you to do this.
yeah,
And then later I might get some other stuff accomplished. I was driving around in my first year of being out and I'd bought a lawnmower and a weed eater.
yeah.
And I'm working now at Bessemer Glass. And I thought, how am I going to get some jobs? And I drove around and I saw these real estate signs
Yep.
in a yard, and the yard was like overgrown. And so I just called the real estate lady. First one I got was in Hueytown, and the yard's grown up. And I said, I'm here with a lawnmower and a weed eater. I will mow the front and the backyard for $50.
Yeah.
And she's like, $50? Because usually it's 150
Sure.
bucks. And I said, I'll take a picture of it now and when I get done and just Venmo me the money.
Perfect.
And so now I still have her. She,
So do it.
yeah, she calls me all the time. Can you mow this? Or it's moved into, can you hang some curtains? Can you paint this bathroom that's pink? The buyer does not want the pink bathroom. And I go in there and I paint it, and $200-300.
Yeah.
And I do a really good job. And I'm cheap, and it's my weekend work.
Dependable.
Yeah,
I mean,
dependable.
it's so
Yeah,
powerful to hear you say all that, and to know you for a short time and hear you say all those things, and I got a pretty good radar on people,
yeah,
and I know that all that to be true. How would you tell that to a young person who's maybe not had any trouble in life,
right.
and in the same room, someone who's walked through some trouble and trying to figure out what's next?
Well, somebody that's never been in trouble, I would just say, get a trade
Yeah.
or find out what you wanna do short term first and then long term.
Okay.
Short term, I would say, what are you gonna do this week?
Yeah.
And then that might correlate in something you want to do 6 months down the road, which would be, again, start to finish, anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's mowing your neighbor's yard, do the best you can, no matter what it pays, and then you'll be satisfied that you completed something to the best of your ability. It's a good feeling inside.
Yeah.
Somebody that's had ups and downs and stuff, they basically know. They know what they need to do. They know right from wrong. Stay busy. That idle time, what is it? Idle hands of the devil's workshop. So true. Don't sit around. Don't sit around, watch TV, complain, and try to figure out what you're going to do. Just find something, find something to do during that day, even if you don't even have a plan. Today, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. There's a
Even
podcast
if it's wash the dishes,
Just wash the dishes.
wash the dishes and vacuum.
Yeah.
You might be living with your mom and dad. Just clean the house.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want nothing. Just do it for nothing.
I can't think of his last name. His first name was Anthony. He was on another podcast. He went to jail for a long time for drugs,
Right.
just like selling, and I guess he was using too. But he's clean now. Got out. He got really healthy in prison. Like, he was a big man.
A lot of people do.
He's like 6'4". He was like almost 400 pounds, but got real healthy. Anyway, now he's jacked. He's a fitness influencer, right?
Gosh.
But he said that. He said, when I first got out, I got a job. It wasn't great. I worked double shifts. I went to the gym, and I went home and showered and slept. He said I had basically like one plate, one spoon, one fork, whatever. But he said the same thing. He's like, just stay busy. He said, I kept my day so full of stuff, so everything was handled, and it kept me out of those idle times.
Keeps you out of your mind.
He said that too.
Yeah. Because you gotta, the old saying, get out of the way of yourself.
Yeah.
Just, don't let yourself stop you from doing things. And sometimes when you sit there and you don't have a plan, you don't I get up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, even if I don't have a plan. And by 5:30, I have a plan.
Sure.
I'm going to do something.
Okay.
I don't care if it's, wash the car or help take care of my mother or, try to figure out what I'm going to do, as far as getting to CDL and stuff like that.
So let's close on that. You may have seen it if you watched any of our episodes. The last question is always, in 5 years, what are you toasting to?
I guess it's more than just one thing. It would be sobriety, staying focused, being consistent, and always being humble.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a pretty good roadmap.
Yeah.
To
success. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Being humble's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. I struggle with that a lot.
Yeah.
Your story is powerful. And when we air this out there, a lot of folks are going to see it.
Yeah.
And, I hope that somebody out there I hope no one struggles, but I hope that someone who is struggling hears your story and says, well, okay, there's my map. There's my
path. Look me up on Facebook. I'll talk to him.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. Man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time and the connection. What time do you test on Monday?
I think I'm second, somewhere around 9-ish, probably.
In Clanton.
In Clanton.
Okay.
Jeff State.
Jeff State.
Go Jeff State.
Yeah. What are they? The Generals, Sentinels? They all have mascots.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
Well, they're very good. Leah Bigby and her team,
Yeah.
Robert Tellis, Gary Jackson, that whole team that surrounds it. I know they're gonna be proud of you. Alex Blevins, he used to work there too.
Alex, great guy. Great guy. And the thing is with Alex, if you just listen to him, it's a breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's first time I met him, I said, well, I'm gonna love this guy.
Yeah.
And I never leave him without smiling, like every time I talk to him, I end up in the conversation with a grin on my face. So Doug, thank you so much for joining us and telling your story.
Anytime.
It motivates and inspires me, and I can't wait to see what our listeners and see from what from your journey.
Right on.
Good stuff. Yeah, man. I think you guys can see from that conversation with Doug about how his passion for finding a way forward, and that anybody walking through a similar situation has the resources if they just decide to do that for themselves. So, just a quick update. Since we recorded this video, we learned that Doug did, in fact, pass his CDL training with One Stop CDL and Alex Blevins. And then he passed the restriction removal with Jeff State, Mr. Gary Jackson at the Clanton campus, and then recently got a job with Russo Construction in Birmingham, Alabama. So we couldn't be happier of the story of just reconciliation and second chances and taking one step at a time. And we hope that you enjoyed the story. And if you can find more resources at jeffstate.edu or at trainforalabama.com, you'll find your way to. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, and share on your favorite podcast platform.